without further ado, let's give a very warm welcome to United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon.
Thank you very much. Please. Thank you very much for your very kind welcome. Thank you, Professor Sachs. Where has he gone? I hope that he has introduced me properly and nicely. But I didn't know what he was saying because I was staying in the backstage. I'd like to really thank Professor Jeffrey Sachs for his very kind words about me. In fact, he said he's working as a special advisor of Secretary General, but in fact, he's my teacher, he's my tutor on many important agendas of the United Nations, particularly on Millennium Development Goals and poverty issues and climate change. I have been very much impressed by his visionary leadership and strong commitment. And you may not be able to find such a committed a person with a strong commitment and visions. And I have been heavily depending upon his advice. In fact, he has been one of the most successful advisors and strong champion to fight against the poverty, to fight against the climate change, and I deeply appreciate. Today, I would like to particularly thank Hans Westerberg from Ericsson and Matthew Bishop from The Economist, who are co-hosting this event. It's a great honor for me to have this opportunity of addressing such a distinguished and informed group of audience. The name itself, Columbia University, means special, and it means everything, in fact. You have produced such a great leadership in politics, in business, in culture. There is no need for me to know much more about that. It's just an honor for me to be here, standing before you. Today, I'd like to discuss with you on matters of our common concern. It's not only my or your concerns, it's concerns and visions of whole international community. I know that President Calderon of Mexico has spoken to you via video. I have been working very closely with him on the matters of, again, global concerns, global challenges, including climate change. I'm sure that he must have given his vision, how he's going to lead this Cancun climate change negotiation process. Green growth is the path to meeting the climate change. Now, it can help us to lay the foundation for lasting and widespread economic recovery. It can help us to reduce poverty and achieve the Millennium Development Goals. These connected objectives are what I would like to speak about today with you. I know that you are distinguished scholars and very distinguished students. Therefore, I may not have much additional knowledge which I can share with you. But since those are the issues which I am dealing directly at this time, so I'll try to share with you what I am doing. And I'll be very happy to sit down and listen to your own views. Now, what I'd like to tell you is that there are two crystal clear things. One is we live in a rapidly changing world. And we live in an ever more interconnected world. The multiple crises of the past few years, made this apparent to all. As a Secretary General, I have been feeling always humbled. How come, why at this time? Why during the time I'm serving as a Secretary General, all these global crises are hitting us all at once? You name all the crises. Poverty has been there all the times. But climate change has surfaced recently, right after I became the Secretary General. But that, I'm responsible for that. But global financial crisis, I have never expected, and I never wanted it to happen. And there is energy crisis. All these are hitting at once. Even H1N1 flu, that is hitting us 40 years after the last global epidemic. Therefore, all these global crises, challenges, needs to be addressed in the global response, through global responsibility. No country, not a single country or group of countries can address these issues. That's what I'm discussing with you today. I saw same awareness among leaders in their response to my call for engagement and commitment on climate change. Now, the response by the world leaders to the financial crisis and climate change showed a growing awareness that in today's world, we sink or swim together. That's the fact we should keep in mind. If I may say about the most recent negotiation in Copenhagen, December last year, that was the highest number of leaders, presidents and prime ministers, gathered in one place. And there have been a lot of controversies, whether Copenhagen conference was a success or not. Yes, the Copenhagen Climate Conference received mixed views. That's true. And yes, we still have a long way to go to reach a robust and binding treaty. That is our goal. However, Copenhagen marked a significant step in a number of areas. 2 years ago, we agreed on Bali roadmap, and we have built up on this Bali roadmap. First of all, world leaders have agreed to contain global temperature rise within 2 degrees by 2050. That's very important. There was no such agreement how to deal with this global temperature rise. And they have agreed, both developing and developed countries, that they would be committed to cut their greenhouse gas emissions by significantly. We hope that all the countries, particularly developed countries, would commit according to the scientific recommendation of IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. That is 25 to 40% by 2020 against the level of 1990. We have not reached yet there, except a few countries, including United States government. I sincerely hope that US will lead this campaign now that President Obama has succeeded in health care bill. Now he is now mandated with this. We have some progresses in addressing deforestation and forest degradation issues and funding for developing countries for adaptation and mitigation. To keep this momentum and to help countries to deliver on the Copenhagen commitment, recently I have launched a high-level advisory group on climate change financing. The Prime Minister Gordon Brown of the United Kingdom and Prime Minister Meles of Ethiopia, they are now leading, and they are going to have first meeting on March 31st, the end of this month. The purpose of this meeting and this high-level advisory board is that we must generate $30 billion by 2020 to help developing countries. But more importantly, we have to have some modalities and framework to generate $100 billion annually until 2020, so that developing countries, first of all, can mitigate and adapt to these climate change consequences. These are very important commitments which were agreed in Copenhagen by the leaders of international community. Adaptation to climate change and low carbon growth are central to achieving Millennium Development Goals. I know that this is a major topic today. Earlier this month, I presented my report to the General Assembly of the United Nations on how I'm going to deal with these Millennium Development Goals. I made my report titled, Keeping the Promise. Let me be clear. The Millennium Development Goals are a pledge which was done by whole world leaders in 2000 while we were celebrating the arrival of Millennium. They are a commitment to the world's most vulnerable countries. Achieving the Millennium Development Goals is a practical necessity. It is a moral imperative, and it is possible. Let me stress this. I think we can do this. There have been many doubts among the world leaders and business leaders that whether these MDG goals can be met by 2015. That is why I'm going to convene a Millennium Summit meeting in September this year. The preparations for the summit are gathering pace. My report shows the way forward. It reviews the successes, the best practices, and lessons learned. It identifies obstacles, gaps, and opportunities. It suggests ways to accelerate progress. The goal for the summit is an agenda for action from now until 2015. We have to have a clear action plan. What international community, particularly leaders of the world, developed world, can provide and can help those developing countries during coming 5 years, from next year to 2015, a specific, practical, and result-oriented agenda with concrete steps and timelines. As I said, the MDGs can be achieved so long as we deliver on two essential elements for success. First, finance. That how much money we may need to get to the point, to the target. We do not need any new monies at this time. We do not need any new promises. Current commitments are already sufficient for success. My message is that those developed countries, they only have to deliver what they have already committed in Gleneagle and G8 and G20 summit meetings. Those pledges, commitments, have not been delivered yet. And it is their political responsibility and moral responsibility to deliver what they have committed. Times are tough. The global economic crisis, coming on top of high food and fuel price spikes, has hit developing countries hard. Growth naturally has slowed. Billions of people have lost jobs, even in the United States. Remittances have fallen. Public revenues have shrunk. On top of this are the challenges of disasters. Many are climate-related. Others, like the recent earthquakes in Haiti and Chile, I don't think they are directly related to climate change. They hit, however, most vulnerable people. The most vulnerable, poorest people, they are the hardest hit each time, whenever we have natural disasters. Haiti is perhaps the most stark example. Last year, many of us were quite confident that Haiti was on the right path. I appointed President Bill Clinton as my special envoy, but long before earthquake hit. And we were working together to bring hope and to bring investors. And they were working very well until and before this country, poor country, was hit by earthquake. Next week, March 31st, together with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and I are going to convene International Donors Conference for Haiti. Now that we have passed more than 2 months, now we are slowly moving toward the reconstruction phase from emergency assistance phase. We have done enough. However, there are still 1.3 million people who are displaced, homeless, and who need day-to-day support, water, sanitation, and food. That's what we are going to do in parallel with this moving toward reconstruction phase. What we will say about Haiti, this exactly applies to the MDG spectrum. There is one difference, however. In the case of MDGs, we do not need more promises. But in case of Haiti, we need some new promises. That's what I'm going to do on March 31st, this month. There are too many partially funded or unfunded financial commitments, as I said. Next to the more than $3 trillion mobilized for stimulus in response to the financial crisis, to national stimulus plans in many developed countries, including the United States, the amount needed for the Millennium Development Goals are very modest indeed. The Green Eagle commitments imply about $160 billion. The 0.7% of GDP for official development assistance implies about $350 billion a year. ODA is currently around $120 billion a year. The difference between current ODA and the Green Eagle commitment is about the same as a year's worth of Wall Street bonuses. Therefore, we need to be very humble. The United States has taken more than $1 trillion for your national economic stimulus packages. First, $790 billion, later, for second time, almost the same. This is astronomical amount of money which have been used to stimulate your domestic economics. I have been speaking to world leaders in G20 summit meetings that I welcome the developed countries to take all necessary domestic stimulus packages. Because I believe that when developed countries' economies are not sound, that we may not be able to have money from them. However, my message has been always consistent that never forget the plight and challenges of developing countries. They do not have any capacity even to think about so-called stimulus packages. And they have to deliver their commitment. We also need to conclude the current round of trade, Doha trade. This too was a commitment to the world's poor and vulnerable. It has taken far too long. It could generate vast resources for development. Government just need to say no to protectionism, subsidies, and other unfair practices. In short, we have the wealth to achieve the MDGs. We just need more political will. Once we have the resources, we know what to do with them. This is my second point, my second essential element for success. We know what works and what doesn't work. We must invest in replicating successes and scaling them up. We can find successes in all the countries, even the world's poorest countries. Between 1994 and 2004, sub-Saharan African countries have achieved one of the largest ever reductions in death from measles. The region has showed the fastest growth in primary school enrollment. Malawi, the African country, has doubled agricultural production. The Millennium villages, which are the initiative taken by Professor Jeffrey Sachs, are showcasing the great impact of smart, targeted interventions. We are seeing how to make most of new technologies. We are beginning to reap the benefits of new national development policies. And we have seen that when you empower women with an integrated strategy for healthcare, education, agriculture, and small business, you can change the world, you can empower the whole society. That's my conviction, and I have been paying priority on empowering women all throughout the world, particularly in developing countries, and how we can have gender equality, how we can provide a decent and equal opportunities to women, and how we can protect women and girls from all this social discrimination and sexual violences. Particularly, they are prevalent in conflict areas. Progress, again, reducing extreme poverty and hunger is uneven at best. My message is quite clear in all of this. With the right policies, adequate investment, and international support, I think these enormous challenges can be overcome. My message has been always to the leaders. You have the power. You may have limited resources. Every country has limited resources. There is no such people or country who think that they are enough, they have enough. But even with the limited resources, that depends upon where leaders put priority, the national priority. If they put more money on education, if they put more money on gender empowerment or poverty reduction, then they can make changes. This is what I have been urging the leaders. China has seen dramatic successes, for example, but elsewhere it is a different story. If you go to sub-Saharan countries, there is not a single country who is on track on these Millennium Development Goals. The first, number one pillar of MDG, cutting in half the extreme poverty by 2015, seemed to be achievable. But with economic financial crisis, we have been severely hit. But if we even try now, with all these commitments made, I think still we have a possibility to achieve this target. The food and fuel crisis highlighted again dysfunction of global agriculture and the chronic lack of secure energy supplies. Again, climate change is further compounding all our risk. There are other areas for serious concern. The area where there has been least progress is in maternal mortality. It's very sad to know that one woman dies from preventable diseases every 1 minute, each 1 minute. So if I speak here for half an hour, you will see 30 women will have died already, and 2 children per minute. This is again unacceptable situation. They are dying just without any reason. They are dying from preventable diseases. So this year, among 8 MDG pillars, I have put the reducing the mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, as a priority. And I'm going to have a very high-powered meeting next month in New York. I have invited many distinguished world leaders who can really generate on this issue. We are, again, failing to adequately meet the needs and rights of women and girls. As I said, this is not simply a gross injustice. It is a lost opportunity, a massive waste. The world's women are the keys to sustainable development, peace, and security. They are the thread that binds the MDGs. Wherever we see lack of progress in reaching any of the MDGs, we see a failure to meet the needs of women and girls. We will not reduce poverty, alleviate hunger, achieve environmental sustainability, or slow the spread of HIV/AIDS until we empower women and girls. There are so many examples around the world of how the United Nations and our partners, such as the Earth Institute, can achieve the MDGs. As we look forward to this year's MDG Summit in September, let us collect and spread these stories. We can empower women, reduce poverty, and meet the MDGs. The September Summit must reinvigorate our commitment and our sense of moral responsibility. If we fall short, all the dangers of our world will grow. The MDGs have sparked a remarkable global mobilization. Rarely have so many organizations from the global to the grassroots agreed on a common agenda for change. Rarely have so many individuals, citizens and CEOs, philanthropists, and political leaders found such common ground in common cause. We have unity of purpose. Let us realize the great potential of this global coalition, this great global movement. The MDGs are not numbers for policymakers. They are real goals for real people. And let us keep our promises, and let us turn the Millennium Goals into a world of opportunity for all, and let us hand over this world to our succeeding generations, where they can live without fear, where they can live much more economically sustainable world and much more hospitable world. Thank you very much for your commitment. Attention. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.